Well, hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome to Reaching Our Best with Robnick Enterprise. This is Sandra R. Blythe, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Let's get to it. So last week we talked about guilt, and we're working under the conversation of guilt, shame, and blame. And last week we talked about guilt as being a feeling of remorse for our actions as well as our words. But this week we're talking about shame. Shame. Shame is what we feel about ourselves in the realm of unworthiness, inadequacy, and we could go on and on. But shame is about how we feel about ourselves, whereas guilt is a feeling of remorse for something we've done, right? So I want to cover a couple of things briefly, and I want to start out with the root of shame. Can we talk about that? Yes, we can talk about that. The root of shame. So, according to Dr. Gregory L. Johns, he said there are at least three roots of shame, three roots that create shame. The first one is toxic parents. Toxic parents can create shame. Imagine that. Imagine how powerful our words are. And when we think about parents, one of the things that stays in the forefront for me is they are our first example. Our mom and our dad, typically our first example. They are our first example of what we should and shouldn't be. They're the first example of people who are in authoritative roles. So we can be persuaded and influenced by the things that they do, by the things that they say. And unfortunately, parents can be toxic, so much so that they create a level of shame in their child or in their children. Let's think about this for a moment because it's like, well, how can parents be toxic? Again, by the things that they say. You're stupid. You're never going to amount to anything. You should know better than that. Nobody's going to want you. You're fat. And as you're listening to me, you're probably saying, oh my gosh, nobody would ever say that to their kids. Or you're saying, oh my gosh, nobody should say that to their kids. But the truth of the matter is, when we talk about toxic parents, they live, breathe, and walk amongst us. They do. But I believe in part, people don't realize the power of their words, especially when you're in an authoritative role, when you are a parent. That child is looking to you for guidance, direction. They're looking to you. But when you have a parent or parents who are toxic toward their children, it creates a place and a space within that child that is forever marked, because that child becomes an adult, and that adult is still carrying that scar, still carrying that voice of feeling unworthy, that voice of feeling inadequate, that voice of feeling less than, falling short, multiple flaws, idiosyncrasies that they're never going to overcome, so they think, because of the stuff that a parent has spoken, the way that that parent has treated that child. And now the root of my shame comes from toxic parents. And I know that's a lot to process, but it's a reality. Dr. Johns also says another root is abandonment or rejection. When an individual has been abandoned, has been rejected, again, we're creating this mold of unworthiness, inadequacy, right? Because I've been abandoned. Children get abandoned, but adults do too. You can be in a relationship and all of a sudden that person is gone. You can be in a friendship and all of a sudden that person is gone. And you're trying to figure out what happened. Why did he leave? Why did she leave? Why did they leave? Abandonment. And because it is the true blue abandonment, now my inner thinking is I'm not enough. I did something wrong. I wasn't worthy. I'm not worthy. Nobody loves me. I'm not worth loving. All of the shame that I'm carrying because every time somebody shows up, they leave me. Well, that probably makes sense because I'm really not worthy. I'm really not adequate enough. I'm really not enough. So I don't really look for my relationships, whether they're friends or otherwise. I really don't look for those to last because I'm just not good enough. The weight of shame. And I know this is a difficult conversation, and some of us may feel like we don't really relate to it, but I think at some point in time, we carry some level of shame. Maybe it's to this degree, maybe it's less. But when you talk about abandonment, if a person is not healthy mentally and emotionally, shame can be paralyzing. You can fall into the black hole, the abyss, because there's no hope, so you think. When we talk about rejection, I don't want to be with you. I don't like you. I don't want you as a friend. I don't need you. Rejection, rejection, shame at the root, toxic parents, abandonment, rejection. That's hard. That is so hard. At the root of shame, unhealthy environment can feed and breed shame. When I talk about unhealthy environment, that can be your job, that can be your school, and sometimes unhealthy environment, if we just look at toxic parents, sometimes unhealthy environment can be inclusive of your own home. But at the root is the unhealthy environment that breeds, feeds, and grows shame. You can be on a job and there are people that work there who will say things like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She always messes it up. I had to tell her 4 times how to do this. I had to show her twice how to do this. I don't know why she's in this meeting. She doesn't know what we know. I don't know why he's doing X, Y, and Z. He's not competent. I don't even know why they hired him. No, we don't want you to do that because you don't know how to do it like somebody else does it. And I could go on and on and on about what they say in a work environment that again impacts and affects our mental and emotional state. That shame of unworthiness, that shame of inadequacy is constantly being fueled and fed by the things that are being said by people in that environment. It's not healthy. In your school, it could be not just your peers in school. Sometimes unhealthy environment in school can even be an instructor or teacher. Many years ago, I probably was 6th grade and it stuck. Even though it wasn't me, it stuck. I remembered a teacher telling a friend of mine who could be distracting, but nobody deserves to be mistreated, right? But I remember her telling him, I've got mine, you get yours. And even at such a young age, what I realized is what she said was inappropriate because I do believe he had some learning challenges. But the idea that you felt the need to shame him and say, you've got yours, he needs to get his, was a mind blower for me. And she will never know what impact that statement had because I believe, based on the relationship I had with this person, he already felt inadequate. So what she said didn't help him feel good about himself, feel confident that he could do the schoolwork. It just fueled what was already going on with that feeling of inadequacy. Words are powerful. They are like a killing frost. And once you have said what you have said, there is not an apology in the world that will be able to take back the words that a person has already heard. So, again, three things that we can tap into right now that we know are roots of shame: toxic parents, abandonment or rejection, and unhealthy environments. So, I've told you that, but what about a resolution? How do we get better? If we are feeling the weight of shame, how do we get better? I would tell you two things. Focus on self-compassion and forgive yourself. Self-compassion, not looking for compassion from other people, but self-compassion. Because as we build or rebuild who we are, who we need to be, we have to do some self-talk. And some of the self-talk becomes me being self-compassionate toward myself. Everything that people say about you that is negative isn't true. And as we grow emotionally, as we grow mentally, we have to arrive, or we will arrive, at a point where we can discern. We can discern that when somebody's trying to put us in shame, that we have a better, healthier perspective of ourselves, that regardless of what this person just said about me, I know who I am. Regardless of what this person did to me, I know my worth. But you have to grow into that. Because, like I said, sometimes shame can be paralyzing. And depending on where we are mentally and emotionally, it can impact us so much to the point of a deep depression. And we want to be very careful. So, when we talk about resolution, self talk that creates self compassion that comes through self talk. I have to forgive myself. Why? I have to forgive myself for believing the story I've been told. I have to forgive myself for believing that I'm not worthy. I have to forgive myself for believing I'm not enough. I have to forgive myself for allowing people to sell me a story that's not true. So I have to work on how I choose to receive what people want to give me in the realm of shame. The more I practice the better I become. The better I become, I have more confidence, I have healthy self-esteem, and my skin gets a little thick. So when you pull the trigger to try and shame me, it's like a boomerang. It's going to come right back to you because I know who I am. The Word of God says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Boom. So for all the shamers, I didn't say the ones who feel shame. I said for all the shamers, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And regardless of what you choose to say to us, we will rise like a phoenix. Come on now. We will rise like a phoenix. This takes work. Shame can be very paralyzing. I've said it twice, so that's my third time. Shame can be very paralyzing, but we have to start doing the inner work so that we can rise like a phoenix because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Hey, my name is Sandra Blythe, and I hope you have enjoyed this as we talked about shame today. And next week, we will be talking about the blame game. That's right. So until then, have a great week. Be courageous enough to be present in the truth. See ya.